Hi friends, happy Friday. Today our goals are to talk about what dyslexia is and add on to our knowledge that we already have, to take a look at what a structured literacy program looks like, which is best practice for all readers and in particular our striving readers, to visit some components you're already using in your classroom that are a wonderful part of your curriculum that support our striving readers as well. And lastly, hopefully to give you a few new ideas to use with our learners. Let's get started. Let's start by taking a minute to jot down what we already know about dyslexia and share it with our table mates. Okay, thank you so much. Let's take that knowledge base and see if we can add some new knowledge to it. Dyslexia it is a specific language learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It takes place in the brain. It is difficulty pronouncing words, difficulty acquiring vocabulary or age-appropriate grammar, difficulty learning letter names and sounds, confusion with concepts like before and after, right and left, yesterday and today, and so on. Our dyslexics also struggle putting their ideas on paper because it's difficult to formulate the idea, and that is a multi-step process getting it to the paper. Additionally, they have poor spelling and decoding abilities, trouble with rapid visual verbal responses. Think of those children who require extra processing time to think about what you've said, formulate an appropriate response, and then give that back to you. Those with dyslexia have difficulty hearing and manipulating the sounds and words, difficulty learning the alphabet, nursery rhymes, and songs. Therefore, they have poor reading comprehension and slow, laborious reading. Considering all of these characteristics, think about the students in your care and discuss them with your neighbors. Okay, let's consider what else we need to know so that we can better serve these students. Dyslexia is not a vision problem. Signs of dyslexia can show up in preschool or even earlier. they have difficulty with rhyming, or if they're a late talker, it could be a sign that dyslexia is something to consider. Many young children have letter reversals, so that is not necessarily cause for concern. We know that's developmentally appropriate through a certain stage. Dyslexia is lifelong. However, many people successfully overcome it, especially with proper intervention that we're going to talk about today. It does have various levels of severity. And probably the most surprising characteristic is that these individuals read at lower than expected levels despite their average or above average intelligence. Next, I'd like to share with you a video that simulates dyslexia reading. In addition, it gives more information about how the brain operates in the language processing that it does for us.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa, or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as was. The truth is, people with dyslexia see things the same way as everyone else. Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan-tas-tic. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like S-T-I-K for stick and F-R-E-N-S for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher, clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
Okay, bear with me just a moment as I try to sort my camera. There we go. Okay, so based on all the new information that we have acquired, what should our reading instruction look like? What I'm sharing with you is based out of this book, Multisensory Teaching of Basic Language Skills. This was first brought to my attention with my very first NIHouse training, and additionally, it has been used in my grad school program. Structured literacy is the approach that you and I should be using with our striving readers. It is evidence-based, and it is good practice for all readers. It is also called the multisensory approach. I'm sure you've heard that before. It means that our direct instruction involves visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic sensory systems to learn the aspects of language. In a nutshell, we include all of our senses, or as many as possible, when teaching and practicing new skills. That way we are creating those new pathways that we just learned about so that our striving readers can begin processing more efficiently. Because dyslexia originates within a language process weakness, our instruction should focus on the analysis and production of language at all levels. Let's consider how we incorporate these components into our instruction. I'm so pleased to say that this resource that I know is so prevalent in our early grades is amazing. It is chock full of wonderful ideas that support this structured literacy approach, this multisensory approach, and it is highly recommended also in grad school. So phonology, that's where we're going to start. Being consciously aware of the individual speech sounds that make up a word is critical for learning to read and spell. Not just listening to the sounds, but articulating them helps our students remember those sounds. It gives them an anchor. So those little mirrors that sometimes roll around the classroom when our children are practicing articulating their sounds, those are actually valuable tools because it helps give another layer of meaning and connection. Phonology is so important, for example, because just one different vowel phoneme in these words, mist, mast, must, and most create totally different words and therefore would disturb the meaning as children were reading. Our students must be instructed in the difference. In an alphabetic system like English, our letters and letter combinations represent our sounds. Decoding is only possible if the student can map print to speech effectively. Another layer of our instruction is phonics and syllable instruction. Because our English language is alphabetic, its phonemes and sounds are represented with graphemes or letters. Students learn that sounds can be written and written words can be read. Knowledge of the syllable types, based on the type of vowel grapheme, allows students to systematically divide words into manageable chunks. This expedites accurate pronunciation of longer words. These correspondences can be explained through systematic, cumulative, explicit instruction that takes several years to complete, but begins very, very early. I'd like to share with you a sample lesson that you could use in your classroom regarding